What if you could see the future, but only 10 minutes ahead? One boy discovered this power after a strange lightning storm hit his town. But what he saw next was not a gift. It was a curse he couldn't escape. And every attempt to change the future made it even worse.
Ethan gripped the rusted chain-link fence, his knuckles white against the cold metal. At 16, he was a ghost in the hallways of Oak Creek High. Teachers looked through him, and classmates bumped into his shoulder without a single glance. He was a shadow in a world of light. One Tuesday, a stray kick changed everything. His shoe struck a hidden lever behind a pile of discarded crates. With a heavy, metallic groan, the ground beneath the utility shed shifted, revealing a narrow, descending stone staircase that smelled of ancient dust and ozone. Ethan stepped into the dark passage, reaching a chamber filled with glowing, humming glass canisters. The air vibrated with raw power. As his fingers touched the glass, the entire room convulsed. Above him, the town's lights surged with impossible intensity, turning the midnight sky into a blinding, artificial day. The silence was shattered by the sudden rising wail of emergency sirens. He was no longer a ghost. He was the eye of the storm. Ethan turned back to the stairs, but the entrance had vanished into solid rock. The world was screaming for him now, searching for the source of the blackout. He was finally the center of attention, but he was more alone than ever before. The storm hit at the stroke of midnight. A jagged bolt of lightning struck the pole outside, making the entire house groan in agony. Ethan gripped his bed as the floorboards buckled. Then, a sharp, white-hot sting pierced his skull. His vision whited out completely as the world dissolved into light. In that split second, his mind became a screen. Blueprints and metallic schematics scrolled past his eyes like a frantic reel of film. When morning finally came, the silence in his room felt unnervingly heavy. Something fundamental had changed inside him. The blueprints remained, etched into his very soul. He reached for a glass in the kitchen, but before his fingers could even graze the surface, it exploded into 1,000 shards. Ethan recoiled, his heart hammering against his ribs. He closed his eyes, and there they were. The glowing schematics hovered behind his eyelids with a terrifying, perfect clarity. His hand moved on its own, a pencil flying across the notepad. He sketched complex gears and circuits he had never seen before. His hands trembled, but the images flooded his mind faster and faster. Soon, his bedroom wall became a frantic map of impossible inventions and mechanical secrets. Ethan stood in the math classroom, staring at the whiteboard until the world blurred. The walls vanished, replaced by the roar of the cafeteria. He saw it all: a student tripping, a tray flying, and spaghetti splattering across a teacher's shirt. Then, with a blink, he was back, shivering in his seat. He looked at his watch. It was 11:50 a.m. The accident would happen in exactly 10 minutes. Ethan dropped his pencil, the clatter echoing as he bolted toward the exit. He reached the cafeteria, his heart hammering against his ribs, checking the ticking seconds. The countdown to disaster had begun. 11:59. The student approached the trash can. Ethan stepped forward, his hand locking onto the boy's arm. "Wait," he whispered. Suddenly, a janitor's cart slammed into the aisle, hitting the exact spot where the boy would have fallen. A tray slid off, crashing into the wall with a violent thud. The room froze as food scattered, but the boy was safe. Ethan let go, his hands shaking as he retreated into the quiet hallway. He looked at the wall clock. It ticked forward, relentless and certain. He knew exactly what was coming next, but for now, he simply walked. Ethan stood on the corner of Fifth Avenue, his eyes locked on the empty crosswalk. 10 minutes into the future, a delivery truck lost its brakes. He saw the metal crumple before it happened. Ethan lunged forward, pulling a startled stranger back as the heavy vehicle roared past, smashing into a brick wall. Life became a series of predictable echoes. He dodged a falling sign in the park and caught a dropped vase before the owner even realized it had slipped. His wealth grew with every predicted market shift. Life was smooth, controlled, and hauntingly quiet.
He kept his head down, avoiding eye contact, living in the shadow of things to come.
But one Tuesday, the vision fractured. Ethan glanced at his reflection in a shop window and froze. He saw his own body lying on the cold pavement, cordoned off by blue police tape. His heart hammered against his ribs.
He checked his watch as the second hand swept forward. The clock was ticking.
He had exactly 10 minutes to identify the shadow creeping up. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The image was undeniable. A black sedan skidding across rain-slicked asphalt. The driver was Mark. On the wall, the digital clock blinked a cold warning. 9:59. He bolted. Keys jingled in his trembling hand as he threw himself into his car. He dialed Mark's number, but only a hollow static answered. He swerved into the main road, desperate to block the path, but a massive truck horn blasted him toward the shoulder. 5 minutes left. He abandoned the car, sprinting toward the crossing with lungs on fire. A police cruiser cut him off, lights flashing like a fever dream. 2 minutes. He shoved past the officer, diving into the middle of the road as the sedan roared toward him.
The tires screeched, stopping inches from his chest. Ethan exhaled, a sob of relief breaking through. But then the engine growled. He stepped to the window, peering through the rain.
The driver turned. It wasn't Mark. It was Ethan himself, staring back with eyes as cold and hollow as a winter grave. The engine roared into a scream. The double surged forward, pinning Ethan against the cold concrete wall. As the clock struck 0, the world went black. There was no escape from himself. Ethan stared at the holographic monitors flickering in the cold dampness of his basement. Every blue data stream highlighted the same terrifying outcome. In every simulated timeline, he was the catalyst for the fatal crash. His hands trembled as the digital projection played again. He was the cause. The digital clock struck 3, a death knell in the silence. Ethan grabbed his coat, his heart hammering against his ribs. He sprinted out the door, lungs burning as he hit the pavement. He reached the street corner just as the car skidded on the wet, shimmering asphalt. Time slowed down. His friend stood frozen, a silhouette trapped in the blinding glare of the headlights. Ethan didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, a desperate arc through the rain. He slammed his shoulder into his friend, sending him tumbling safely onto the sidewalk. Then, the world exploded. The screech of tires filled the air, followed by the sickening crunch of metal against bone. Ethan collapsed onto the cold,
unforgiving asphalt as the vehicle sped away into the shadows. Pain was a distant roar, replaced by a strange, heavy silence. He looked up at the darkening sky. His friend sat up, unharmed, and turned toward him with wide, tearful eyes.
Ethan watched the traffic signal overhead flicker from red to green. He closed his eyes, a final smile touching his lips. The future was different.